business and policies. We have some meetings to schedule.
Yes, we do. We only have scheduled through the next one, so.
Right.
What are we scheduled through so far?
Just
The
next week,
next-
not next week, 2
Next meeting,
weeks
which
from.
is in 2 weeks from today.
Obviously, it's a difficult month.
So,
5th and 19th, or 12th and 26th, if we're going to do 2, or some other combination.
19th or 12th.
I would not be available on the 5th, but I'm only one person.
Well,
We need 2 meetings? We do everything just on the 12th?
what do we have in
I'm not
this?
here on the
do one on
12th.
Christmas
My-
Eve
That's
or
my
the-
You're
thing.
not here the
New Year's
12th?
Eve.
I'm going on vacation.
Oh.
I know.
The 19th, do we have anything that is
The
in
19th?
in the pipeline that requires a meeting sooner?
The only thing we have in the pipeline is, it looks, we might still have the Ryder truck in the pipeline, and then we have Lopes Drive coming in as a modification.
Well, given, I don't know how urgent that is, given the fact it's been 2 years since it was last approved.
And we just modified it. So they're coming in to modify it again.
Can folks make the 19th?
I can do the 19th.
All right, we'll schedule the 19th, and with any luck, that'll be the only meeting.
So just December 19th?
December 19th, Tim has an issue with the 5th. You're out on the 12th.
Then the 19th?
The 19th. And if something comes up that's absolutely urgent, we could do the 5th, but
Yeah.
right now we'll just do the 19th. And then for January,
Do you want to start early and do the 2nd? Or are people out?
The 9th and 23rd?
I think the 9th and the 23rd makes more sense.
Yeah.
Although, when is, okay. Do we stop there, or do we go further?
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, well,
2 months ahead?
so December 19th, January 9th, and 23rd.
Okay.
I'll do a little memo and hang it up.
Report of the Planning and Economic Development Director.
Great. So that's in tab B of your binders. Just current applications in process. Tonight, we're going to be talking about some of these: Ryder truck, home plate, signage, water treatment plant, and then I have pending the 3 Lopes Drive we just talked about. The next thing on here is the Clapp Street Solar Project. So that's the Wheaton Solar. If you remember, we approved that Landmark Landscaping could work with the Hayden family to implement landscaping on their property to screen the solar project. So that work has been done and completed to the satisfaction of the Haydens, and I have an email to that effect right here. And I have an invoice from Landmark, and I went out today and I just did a drive-by, and it looks like some majorly sized nice trees have been planted, so that was that item, so we can, that's under bills, so if we have questions, we can talk about it. And then Mary Jo Estates, we're going to talk about surety release with them, but I do want to note, we have a 7:20 public hearing that's been noticed for 7:20, and I believe it's 7:20 now. So I
Why
don't
don't
know
we-
if you want to skip.
Why don't we hold off on the rest of your report?
Sure.
And
It would mean skipping over the first one, too.
yeah, let me just open the special permit and site plan review public hearing for 184 West Main Street, Home Plate Restaurant. Is our folks from Home Plate here?
Yes.
Can I ask you just to hold off on 2 minutes? I just wanted to open the meeting. If someone would vote to, or move to table, or table the meeting until, I just want to go in order. We have a surety release, which shouldn't take a lot of time. So if we get a motion to table the
So moved.
hearing,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Fred, you're here for surety release on Mary Jo Estates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fred Bottomley, for the record.
And just hold on just a second, sorry. For the board's notice, there's, under EF, it says, there's a couple of printouts for you to look at regarding the surety release. Go ahead, Fred, sorry.
Tabitha mentioned the other day to Walter Landry, I guess, from Keith Silver, that the plans that had been approved did not have sloped radius curbing. That is going to be replaced this week. The plans were approved without it, but we'll be putting those in. The patch for the hydrant installation was a temporary patch, and that should be taken care of from a permanent perspective this week also. Respectfully, then, we have before you a original request for the hydrant, the tapping sleeve, valve box, ductile iron water pipe, granite curbing. That had a subtotal of $16,445, contingency of $2,467, for a total request for release of $18,912. Additionally, the loam and seeding had all been done. The neighbor's yard had also been graded. Tabitha made us aware of the roadway layout. The street trees have all been installed. Hydro seeding was all completed. That had a subtotal of $38,655. The contingency would have been $5,798 for a total of $44,453. So it's the aggregate of the $44,453, respectfully, and the $18,912. If there's any questions, I'd be hopefully be able to answer them.
Can you just back up on the 44?
Yeah, the 44 was the loam and seed. This is per your surety setups. Was the loam and seed was $15,855. The street trees totaled $22,800. Subtotal of that would be $38,655. Contingency in the aggregate would be $5,798, equaling the total of $44,453.
So you're asking for that in addition to what you asked, well,
In addition to the $18,912.
in addition to the previous?
Yes, thank you.
And is there anything left in surety? The as-built survey, I assume, has not been completed?
That's correct. The final top coat will be done in the spring. The
Okay, that's the 16th.
National Grid came out, installed 2 extra poles on the property site, one guy pole and one at the transit point of Lot 3 and Lot 4. And so in the springtime, none of the homes, all of the lots have been sold. None of the homeowners have started their homes yet. But in the springtime, we'll probably come back and visit you and wish and hope that you all had a nice winter.
All right, but no one has looked at the trees and the seeding?
I drove out there briefly today. I didn't inspect and count anything because I wasn't aware they were coming. I mean, we talked about trees, but I didn't know you were coming in for that.
Yeah, I wasn't handling what, Walter Landry apologizes. He's sick in bed and couldn't make it tonight.
So, I mean, all I had the understanding of was this, and as I mentioned to you, but maybe not to the whole board, is that Keith and I had a conversation about it, and he had been following up with you or one of your agents and hadn't seen it installed yet, so he didn't want to write anything to say,
It being the slope
Return.
granite curbing and the patch around the tapping sleeve.
correct.
If the board is uncomfortable with the loam and seed from a cursory view, we'd be more than happy to come back December 19th if you don't mind seeing our faces again. So,
Thoughts?
I think that
I'd
seems
like
to be the
to have someone
immediate
look-
way, yeah.
Someone look at it.
Yeah. I agree.
And although the granite curbing isn't done, I assume a motion would be in order to, if the board is so inclined, to approve the release of 18,912 with the condition that that not be released until the slope granite curbing and the patch to the valve and tapping sleeve area has been done to the satisfaction of either the water department or the highway department.
yeah, we have no problem with that as
That
well.
way-
I mean, it's going to get done. so-
Yeah, no, but just so
Yeah.
that we're all
Yep.
crossing our Ts and dotting our Is.
Bookkeeping.
So moved. All right, there's a motion to release $18,912, subject to inspection of those two to be yet completed items.
I'll second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
Thank you very much.
Fred.
Thank you, Fred. You too.
You too. All right, I'm sorry, folks from home plate, I just wanted to take that little piece of business they were scheduled before you, but come on up and introduce yourselves.
So this is under tab 1 of your binders. The special permit for an electronic message board.
Please. If you just-
Scott Spalding with Viewpoint Sign and Awning.
And Rob Anderson from Home Plate.
Welcome. Floor is yours.
Okay. We're here to seek special permit approval for an EMC as part of, to replace an existing sign for the plans we submitted. To be clear, there is no EMC on the property at this point in time. The landlord has given us a letter stating that this would be the only EMC on the property, just to be clear. And other than that, the sign conforms to the bylaw for the village.
Just for the planning board who hasn't seen, I did do a report reviewing this according to our bylaws, so you will see that the only issue that I had raised, which I think we've already discussed via email, was the fact that there might be another EMC on the property, and there's only one allowed per property. So if they're not going to, I just want to know what's going to happen to the one that's there.
There isn't one there.
Well, there's an empty slot for.
Correct. He's foregoing putting one there in order for Home Plate to have an
So
EMC.
he's never going to put one here?
He's not.
I'm just curious.
Yeah,
It's just
not as long as he has one, obviously, because you wouldn't, he'd have to come for you to approve that.
Yeah.
Which you wouldn't be able to do because there's already one there. But he did write a letter that we do have.
Can you switch that panel out for like a sign?
He could,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, what he's
I'm just
gonna,
hopeful that you can use that space.
yeah, he can use, we'll have to augment it if it's for a tenant. You know, I think at this point, I think he's pretty much rented there.
I think he's got a little ways to go. But as
Yeah.
he said there's nobody that's interested in the EMC at the moment, so he was going to give Home Plate the spot to take it and incorporate it into our sign.
Which would replace the existing freestanding sign for Home Plate there.
Right. So
That is much bigger than, you know, it's a legal non-conforming sign that's there now.
And the new one will be exactly 10 feet from the road like the existing one?
Correct. Yeah.
Questions?
much nicer sign, that's for sure.
question in terms of the programming and how quickly, I'm trying to look in our regs, how quickly the message changes, or will it change?
10 seconds.
It would change, what is the bylaw read for changing?
Has to stay up for 10 seconds at a time.
Yeah,
And
and there's
that's-
static changes, I believe, correct, right?
Right.
That's exactly conformed to the bylaw.
We have a similar sign in the Taunton restaurant, and we also have that same bylaw, so.
There'll be no exploding fireworks.
No, not going to have the Red Sox game on there, but, you know.
Yeah.
It says it shouldn't be between 11 and 6, is that? you
11,
Understand that?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 11 PM to 6 AM.
To 6
Right at the
a.m.
off.
Other questions?
Just to clarify on the existing sign, do we need anything from the landlord? You mentioned you had a letter just to state that he's,
Yeah, there's a letter in the packet.
is it in here? Okay, I didn't see
Yeah.
it.
It says, I authorize him to do whatever on my behalf.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, he would have to, they never,
Okay.
I think the confusion might have been that the ZBA approved the sign, they never approved an EMC. If they had someone interested, or, I'm not sure what I wasn't the account manager involved in that, but I think the thought was that it could be kind of a carrot to bring somebody in there. They would go back to ZBA, have to go back to ZBA and then go before you, or the other way around, I don't know. So
Yeah,
they
we do
could,
EMC and the ZBA just as variances.
correct,
So I
right.
think there was just,
Well, I think there was some confusion on that, but they never got ZBA approval for an EMC there, so.
no, they didn't.
Okay.
Just a question, the lights are on top of each of the towers, they look like they're blue. Are those siren lights that circle?
No,
That's a
no,
simple
they're
blue
just,
light.
yeah, they're just accent. They're
Okay.
just little accent, low voltage. They're not,
Okay.
They're not going to blink or anything.
no.
Anything to grab the
So- so
attention?
Strobe.
Those will be blue, is that the color of those lights, or?
I think they're just
They are,
white.
no.
No, they are blue? I
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. It's been so long since we did.
They're
We have
blue
a
and-
very similar sign in
Taunton.
Taunton, yeah.
And the home plate, that'll be illuminated, right?
Yeah, they're individual channel letters
Channel letters.
illuminated, yeah, so the background doesn't light up, just the letters.
Okay.
Seems pretty straightforward.
And you're all set with the brightness and the control of the brightness of the sign and everything per the bylaw?
Yes,
The 3-foot candle.
correct, yeah, which is about pretty much average for a channel letter.
And what about the messaging board? Same thing, because you have to control the brightness on that?
Correct, we can.
Okay.
Yeah, via the programming.
Okay, any other questions? Any oth-
Tabitha, was there any input from public safety?
No, I haven't received anything from them. Highway just said they had no comment. Same for the other usual suspects that didn't really apply here.
Is there any other information? Otherwise, could I have a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor of closing the hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, is there a motion to act on application for the electronic messaging center?
Move to approve the special permit to replace the existing freestanding signboard with the electronic message center.
Second.
Okay, and there were just three housekeeping pieces that Tabitha had pointed out, that the final plan incorporating any conditions of the approval shall be submitted to the planning board prior, so I assume this is the
The standard
final.
language, yeah.
Special permit will be recorded with the registry of deeds, and the permit lasts for 2 years. You have 2 years to put it up. Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there an appeals period on your decision?
So I'll be drafting the decision within the next, with 14 days. I get 14 days to do that, and then I'll stamp it in with the clerk, and then there's a 20-day appeal period.
Okay.
And then after that, you can come back and register it with the registry, record it with the Registry of Deeds.
Right, and then we go back to the building inspector.
And then you go to the building inspector with that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Pleasant night.
Okay.
Hopefully, after, what, 3 or 4 iterations, they'll succeed. All right, lost my agenda.
I haven't had that.
You can't send
Agenda,
What is it, the burger?
giant burger.
Water treatment?
yeah.
Thought about doing that. It's a hot.
So under tab 2, we're going to be discussing the site plan review for the Plain Street, Town of Norton Water Filtration Treatment Plant. And we have Bernie, our superintendent, our water superintendent is here, I know. So would you like to come up and?
I have with me, excuse me, our lead engineer, Barbara Cook from Weston and Sampson. And folks, I'd like to apologize because we should have been here about 3 years ago. However, due to some archaeological investigations, surveys, and so on and so forth, this whole project has been delayed for about 30 months. So thank you for hearing us tonight. It's been a long road. Design engineers have designed this plant 3 times since I've been superintendent. I'd like to give you a quick look. For the folks at home, maybe, really quick. This will be the exterior of the building. And this is actually the design that we're working on for DEP right now. So we'll give them a quick look at this. As I said, we started this journey back in May of 2014. Went in front of the town, asked for $8.9 million. It was voted on and approved. We've had approximately $300,000 of archaeological work and engineering work before one shovel has really ever been put in the ground for this water treatment facility. However, in June of this year, Mass Historic Commission has finally released this property that we're looking at to house this facility for 3 of my dirtiest wells in town. They've given the approval for us to use the land. And now, Weston and Sampson, I'm gonna invite Barbara to speak after I finish up briefly, but it's been a long road. We have SRF funding, state revolving fund money that's available, still available. We've had to extend. Conservation, we have a few loose ends with conservation to take care of, but that should be all set. And hopefully the design, DEP will, we've already had a joint meeting with DEP and EPA last week. And we've been assured that DEP will fast-track this project, meaning that when they get the plans, it'll be the turnaround will be probably the quickest ever that anyone's ever seen in the state. And we can go out for bid either late December or early January. Hopefully, we'll be able to put a shovel in the ground in spring. So with that, I'll give you Barbara Cook, and she'll be able to embellish on some of the things that I've just said. Thank you, Mr.
Hi.
Chairman.
Barbara Cook with Weston Sampson Engineers. So the project, the limit of work from where we were in 2014 has exactly stayed the same, but you can kind of see this donut hole here. That is an area that we need to protect. So the idea was to make sure that the town didn't spend a lot of money redesigning the building, was we kept the building the same footprint, and what we did was we reduced the sand drying bed area. So what happens in the treatment plant are there pressure vessels in the treatment plant, and every day or two, depending on the amount of water the plant processes, We backwash the filters, and there are actually underground here 2 holding tanks that hold that backwash water. A portion of it will be recycled to the head of the plant after it settles out, and the bottom 30% will be pumped into either of these sand drying beds. So what will be in those beds is essentially iron and manganese, what you might see in your water now. So there's nothing that's going to smell or have any odor. We also have a landscape plan that shows along here that we're doing some red maple and rhododendron plantings. I think it's towards the end. Oop, couple back. There you go. You can see up above here that believe there's 6 maples and something on the order of 20 or so rhododendrons. The area now, most of it has been cleared to do the archaeological work that needed to be done. The building square footage is about 7,200 square feet. There are roof drains that go to the stormwater basin. There are also drainage that goes to the stormwater basin. So, I don't know, I just wanted to give a really brief overview. I don't know what more detail you'd like to get into.
Where is the stormwater basin located?
It's down at the southern end of the site.
Okay. And just
This-
one?
There you go. Yep,
Okay,
just
there you go.
one.
Okay, thanks.
And you mentioned, 2 questions. The donut, if you will, needs to be protected. Why?
Based on archaeological finds there.
That was leading into my next question. What, if anything, was found?
There were some artifacts that, in order to essentially save the town some money, the idea is they would prefer that they be left here in place, and they prefer, there was also artifacts in this area too, that they prefer actually be left in place rather than removed. We're not really supposed to say what the artifacts are because we don't want people digging things up.
We can say with pretty much 100% guarantee that there was no burials. So
That's what they were worried about.
and that's why the extensive survey. They were afraid that because in this area there was a lot of Indian or Native American activity leading up to European engagement. So basically, what we had to do is we had to prove, without a shadow of a doubt, that there were no burials and that there was nothing that could actually hinder their culture and their culture definitions. So we've done that, and they're satisfied.
Can you just explain how the drying beds are used and what is the life expectancy? Are they cleaned out or?
Yeah, so once a year, the iron and manganese will be removed and landfilled. So the town will do that, and there are ramps to drive equipment into it. So the idea is, because there's no coagulant that we have to add, the material dries out really quickly. I don't know if you're familiar with other water treatment plants, but some water treatment plants add a coagulant and it doesn't dry out real easily. But when you don't add the coagulant, the material dries out very quickly, and you can go in there with a loader and essentially remove the material. So probably on an annual basis, they'll be removing material and landfilling it.
And then you bring in more material to replace it?
Yep, so that's the reason there's 2. The previous design had 2 very equally sized basins, but because of how we had to work around our new site, they're not as equal size anymore. So it just might mean operationally, maybe when this bed is in use, they might have to also use this bed. But that was the best we could do.
Are
I
these,
see on the drawing, it's bottom elevation 75.5, so. that's-
It's 4 feet above the groundwater table. That's what's required by the state for a groundwater discharge
4
permit.
feet above groundwater table. How deep from top grade is that?
The top grade's about 79 feet.
Okay, so 79 feet down, okay.
are these line beds?
No, they're not.
So when you say drying, some is going to evaporate and some is going to leach?
Most will leach back into the ground, correct. And the idea is that because you've removed the iron and manganese, in some respects, the water quality actually is made better because that is now precipitated and that's what you've removed. So in essence, cleaner water is going into the ground than what you started with.
What area of town, I assume it's in this immediate area, is gonna be covered by this plant?
So this plant does about 70 to 80% of your water supply. So it's a good portion of town that will get provided water from this plant.
Yeah,
Is this the same capacity you had planned for 3
Yes.
years ago?
2.5 million gallons a day. Yes.
What is the high capacity for this facility?
This facility will
2.5?
treat 2.5 million gallons a day.
And what is
That's what
the
it's
current,
designed for.
what's the current use?
Generally, the average is 1.2 million gallons a day. High in the summertime, I think I've seen 1.8 to 2.1. But we also have 5 million gallons of storage.
One of the things you look at for a treatment plant is because it's very expensive to operate it, if you can size it for your maximum well capacity, then that will allow you to maybe run it, say, 8 or 16 hours a day. So hence the 2.5 versus like the average day of 1.2. But I think your max day is almost approaches 2, right?
It's about 1.8. I think I've seen 2.1 once.
Yeah. So on your maximum days in the summer, you want that plant to produce that, and plus you have some extra capacity for additional population in the future.
How loud was the plant operational?
It's very quiet. There is a generator, but it has a soundproof enclosure on that. Probably the only issue with noise might be when there's a chemical delivery, which might happen a couple times a month, and you have, an 18-wheeler coming in. But there's, it's just the noise of the truck driving in there. There's no noise when the chemical's delivered.
Maybe when we take care of the filter beds, you might hear heavy equipment, a loader, a backhoe, a dump
Yeah.
truck,
Construction
so on and so
equipment, yeah.
forth.
Yeah, so when you
I was thinking
remove,
more on an ongoing basis.
no, on a
ongoing
daily basis,
To be
it'll
honest
be
with you, if
quiet.
you walk by this plant, if everyone could be quiet, can you hear the equipment running? That's pretty much what you're gonna hear. You can I've operated 2 similar plants, and from the outside, you really can't hear a thing.
Okay.
And generator's just a backup generator?
Backup
So
generator
only run
when there's,
exercise.
when there's power loss and exercise once a week.
What's the size of the generator? Has that not been determined yet?
Large,
I want to say it's 250
Yeah, 250 kW, yeah.
kW.
yeah, large enough to run the plant, and the individual wells that feed the plant will have their own as well.
Okay.
You mentioned the max was 2.5 million gallons a day
For the plant.
for the plant. Any opportunity of it being expanded or any growth, or that's the max it could?
I think that we're pretty much gonna be, well, I can yield to your better judgment, I mean,
It's possible that we could bring some additional supplies there, so, but to actually expand the building, we're actually going to be restricted. We're supposed to start kind of negotiating with Mass Historical on a memorandum of agreement because this whole area is very sensitive archaeologically. They don't want us just willy-nilly expanding the plant. They are going to work with us in case we need to put in some replacement wells. So we don't have a lot of room for an expansion, unfortunately.
We have 2 acres of land, and we've pretty much, Weston Sampson has designed a very good, efficient filter plant that will work within the 2 acres of land. Anything more than that, we're gonna have to seek other resources in the future.
What chemicals are stored on site?
Potassium hydroxide, sodium hypochlorite, which is bleach, and potassium permanganate.
Any issues with fire department on those?
We met with, we had a preliminary meeting with the fire department and the building inspector. They were fine with that. The area where we're storing the chemicals is a separate room, and it has an H4 hazard capacity, and that area needs to be sprinkled. But the fire department was fine with that. We do have to submit kind of a second submittal to them to kind of get them on board with where our final design was, but in concept, they didn't have any problem with it.
There's only one chemical that we will be using that we don't use right now as treatment. It's potassium permanganate. What potassium permanganate does is, this is a conventional green sand filtration plant. So potassium permanganate also helps with the green sand to keep regenerating the green sand, because the green sand basically is what's activating and taking the iron and the manganese out of the water in vessels. It's a conventional plant. Many of these plants are found throughout the in New England area. The town of Mansfield, the town of Foxborough, both have almost an identical situation in their towns.
Those chemicals are all dry chemicals, liquids?
They're mostly liquid, yes.
Other questions?
It says here that there was going to be a conservation hearing on the 13th.
Right. That hasn't been updated since they couldn't post their agenda on time, and they had to cancel the meeting.
Okay.
Because of the holiday, there was some mix-up with the clerk, so they didn't have a conservation hearing this past Monday.
Okay.
So I imagine
That was,
continued to the next
yeah,
conservation hearing,
yeah.
which is
So
November 27th?
27th, I think, yeah.
I believe you're right,
27th.
Tabitha. I think it's the 27th.
Yeah, so that's
Immediately
just a
after
typo.
Thanksgiving.
So yeah, the stormwater permits and the wetlands permits are all through the,
And we did have an original notice of intent and order of conditions back in 2014, and so when we went before the Conservation Commission, this time it was for an amended order of conditions. Given that we were in the same footprint, we just moved some things around.
right, and so the comments from the conservation director were that the only question was the septic system, but that they would likely have a permit issued that week, so. And the comments from the fire chief are also here, and it's pretty standard.
And
May
I-
want to consider as,
I assume the fire department has looked at this layout, they have no issue with churning.
No, they did want to see our kind of final design. We met with them initially. Everything wasn't 100% worked out, but on that conceptual level, they didn't have any problem.
Any other questions, or, somewhere I noted that we don't have a lighting plan as of yet,
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. We can get you that.
and Norton is a dark sky compliant, particularly in that area. It would be important to make sure we're not lighting up the woods.
Yeah.
particularly with Native Americans in the area. We'll
Yeah,
leave
no
them-
casinos or anything like that, no
No.
blinking lights, no flashes, no, we're gonna be, hopefully out of sight, out of mind, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? If there are none, is there a motion to approve the site plan, perhaps with the condition that we receive an acceptable lighting plan at some future point? Obviously, we're
Soon.
more than a couple weeks away from opening up, so.
So moved.
Was that a question about to be asked?
No, I
or-
was going to make the motion. but-
Well, Frank beat you to it, so
Yeah,
do you
so
want a
I'll
second? Okay. There's been a motion and a second to approve the site plan as presented with the condition that we receive an acceptable lighting plan. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
This has been a long road, and I just want to make sure that you have my confidence, that you have my support, and I have your support that we're doing the best thing that we can for the town of Norton to get some clean water.
You build out 60 days, huh?
Excuse me?
You build out 60 days after.
120?
All right,
No,
120, we'll,
we're looking at the fall of 2019, but we're trying to scale that back shave a couple months off of that, so now it's, as soon as the feet can hit the ground, we'll be out there.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. for your
Thanks,
time.
Bernie.
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you very much. So next is tab 3 of your binders, special permit, site plan review modification, SP 455. So this is a minor modification to 454A that we approved in April for Ryder Truck on 60 Commerce Way. So the major bullet point on this is that they're reducing the footprint once again. So it went from 100 to 80-something to now 20-something. So
20,
and I believe, hey, how are you, Mark? So.
Sure.
This has a little bit more lengthy of a report and review to it. We can have Condyne introduce.
Please, if you
Good.
introduce yourselves and
Well,
give us a
we're,
quick snapshot of what you're
I'm
doing.
Jeff O'Neill with Condyne, and Mark Dibb with CNA Engineering. So we're back here, this will be the fourth time, so for some new members that weren't here when we previously started this, but this one was previously approved, and then we went to the individual building that they wanted, which was the smaller concept, which we're presenting now, and then it went to the 80,000 square foot building, which was subsequently approved, and now we're amending it for hopefully the last and final time. So what's transpired and what's changed over the course of the period is that Ryder had a board level limit of how much they could spend for their own facility, and the board changed that within the past 3 months and increased the dollar amount. So as soon as they got that approval, they came back to us and said, we want to go to the standalone building, which is their prototype. So what you're seeing here is the facility. It's roughly in total just under 25,000 square feet. There is a second floor office component and first floor rental and retail and parts storage. And then on the footprint is roughly about 20,860 square feet that's located there. If you're familiar with the site, this is the last site that's located at the cul-de-sac on 60 Commerce, all the way to the end of Norton Commerce Center. Get the site plan? Okay, why don't you, we'll modify the changes of what's transpired.
So what, the drawing up on the screen is what's proposed today. What I've done as an exhibit for both Planning Board and Conservation was to put what's proposed today in red and what was proposed in the dark lettering. So this was the 80,000 square foot building, and the limit of work you'll see matches up. Basically, the limit of work has stayed the same. The main change of the entire project is just instead of the roof drains of the larger building, we now have pavement and parking, which results in just the piping infrastructure of the drainage system to change, and catch basins and everything else. The outer limit of work is the same. We've even been able to give back a little area through here. So an overall minor reduction, but a minor reduction in impervious area. Drainage basins are proposed to remain exactly the same. So they're slightly oversized, not much, just very minimally oversized due to that reduction in square footage. Drainage parameters are all the same. The TSS removal we've proposed hasn't changed from the previous approval. Other than just the layout, which some of the board has seen in the past, trucks are able to come in either direction. There's a parking area in front for both employees, and they will park a few of the cabs and rental trucks out front. There is a fence proposed for security to the back, and then it's a repair facility, an office facility, so the building's significantly reduced. The site will continue to tie into the Norton Commerce Center sewer system, so there is no on-site septic, as well as water exists at the end of the cul-de-sac town water. It'll tie into town water. And lighting is still proposed to be dark sky compliant. We are still requesting the same waiver for all the parking area in back of the 30-foot light poles, just to get that throw of the light, into satisfactory into the middle of the site, which you've approved for this exact project in the past, as well as the waiver for the scale of the drawing would remain. These are 40 scale drawings, so we'd continue to request that. Otherwise, I think that covers the changes. If there's any specific questions.
I think I heard you say the 60,000 square foot, about 60,000 square foot reduction in the size of the building, and that area was going to be turned into parking lot?
Yeah.
Correct.
And the drainage system is sufficient to cover that extra covered area?
Yes, the actual treatment units themselves that treat the oils and grease and sediment, those were sized as if the entire area was impervious parking. Since they were in line with the drainage system, they included that impervious area, so the treatment aspects will still meet the standards. And again, as far as just the physical size of the basins, there'll be slightly less runoff coming into those as a result of the reconfiguration.
And it doesn't add problems to you on the vernal pool and the vegetated wetlands and that sort of thing?
No, we're within approved limits. We are in the same boat as the previous applicant. We had a meeting last Monday night, or just yesterday, that was canceled due to, so we are also amending in order of conditions. We will be on their conservation hearing on the 27th.
So nothing has changed on the perimeter. In the vernal pool, what you can see is the circle up there, and then we kind of block around it. In addition, we've recently done the restoration for the conservation on the back side of the vernal pool. So if you've been up to the site now, you can see it's been brought up to grade. The detention basins are fully in. The only thing we have to do now is just finish up piping and bring the site up to the grade of this building. So everything is cleared, cut down, soils are brought up, and it looks beautiful. So
It looks
we ju-
beautiful, but we haven't gotten peer review, and neither has conservation, just FYI.
But we had peer review for the 80,000,
We did.
Correct.
so.
Conservation did, but it was a different filing.
Right, but in terms of peer review for this 20,000 square foot building, from our perspective, the 80,000's already been reviewed prior to our approval last time around. So I can't imagine that there's anything,
Amory Engineers.
right, more detrimental when the
Twice.
use is the same.
Right.
And the scale is now a quarter of what it was.
That's correct. The building is downsized.
Yeah, the only
Wetlands
thing I
permitting is
saw was the
complicated to me, so
addition of
I,
the impervious
you know.
area.
Well, the impervious stays the same, it's just
No, but
asphalt versus roof.
Versus roof.
Oh,
So everything's the same, and we're within the same limits, even less so what was previously approved in
Yeah,
the
this-
100,000 square feet. So
Yeah,
when we
this is-
started, there was more perimeter that was around, and then we've retracted that.
Can I talk about the asphalt parking area? I'd like to ask some questions about it.
Okay.
When I was reviewing it, I noticed the parking area, it's expected to comply to the parking as we require. It appears you have a lot of spaces for large trucks. It says on the plans that you have 55 spaces per, what's allowable by our regulations. But there's 144 spaces that I counted, because they're not labeled, so I was a little confused. But could you explain what's going on there?
The facility will have trucks parked that are being repaired, will be repaired. They will have some new rental trucks that'll
Correct,
come
they
in
have
and
a rental
out.
fleet that's garaged here, that's located there as well. And they have three components of trucks, which is very small tractor trailer that come in and get serviced, so the vehicle's coming in to be repaired, then they come in. They're located at the far section of the site, up in the top, right in that location. Storage of trucks that are here, that's in their fleet, is in the rear of the site where those spaces are. Trucks waiting to go into the service bays are located in these two sections. And then there's additional tractor storage, and this is the rental fleet ready to go that customers come in on a daily basis. So very similar to if their biggest competitor is already in the park, which is Penske. So if you go up and see Penske's building that's fully complete now, this is almost identical, just a different brand. You'll see.
So is this building changing from, did you have more that you wanted to
No,
ask?
go ahead.
Changing from the 80 to the 20, is this going from a multi-tenant building to a single-tenant building?
Single-tenant
And
Sole
because,
operator will be Ryder.
and because Ryder has more money, they can do whatever they want with the site, essentially?
Within the parameters, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, under the 80,000, the intent was for Ryder to take 40, and then the other 40 was High Bay Warehouse. So, there's always a question who might move in there. Now we know exactly that it's Ryder taking over.
Okay.
100% maintained, right.
Fueling will take place where
There's a
now?
fuel island that's designed on the lower portion of the service bays, right in this section. So it's a 20,000 gallon above-ground storage tank. It's already been previously approved through the selectmen, the license that we have in place.
And it was on the 80,000 proposal.
So that remains unchanged?
Remains
Correct.
unchanged.
We did, there's a little more space, and we're able to move it away slightly from the edge of pavement, which allows the fueling truck to access that side. It's actually a better layout now. It's cleaner. The truck that might fuel it up does not have to sit next to the pumps anymore. It can sit on the outer edge, so it's actually a more preferred layout.
And it has emergency shut-off valves to protect it from going into the ground as well.
Tabitha, were you, did you still have some other questions or comments?
So other comments I had. So on the parking thing, it is really up, just to make it clear, it is up to the planning board to decide how many spaces they allow when it comes to that, when it comes to trucks, tractor trailers, anything other than an automobile. We don't have a specific number for that, so that's up to you. On the lighting, they're asking for a waiver. They did submit a photometric plan. I don't understand photometric plans, not being a lighting engineer, so I will say that peer review hasn't been sought on that either. But it may be the same as last time, like you said.
It's full cutoff fixtures. Again, it is a 30-foot light pole versus your 20-foot bylaw that you've allowed under the 80,000, and it'll be dark sky compliant, similar to
Again,
everything else in the park.
If it's the same lighting plan as was submitted for the 80,000 square foot building?
Modified for the smaller building. So I think most of the lights stayed the same around the perimeter, but now we have some wall packs in different locations for the smaller building. But it's the same scheme, but modified to fit properly with the building.
It's something that really should be thought of, because in these industrial buildings, we can't get the light to certain areas in the parking area or the truck docks. So unless we're gonna put a physical structure in the middle of those areas, because we have to plow and trucks are traversing all over there, you don't want those there, because they get run over or taken down. So that's why the higher poles in consideration.
But you're staying at the 30-foot.
Staying at 30
Correct.
foot. That was previously done. It's something to think about zoning in the future.
I want to say the older decision to,
I was looking for the parking in the old.
something about the lighting, though. The site lighting was supposed to be reduced because of the frogs or something during a certain time. Is that also
It
going
has
to
some
be?
requirements in the conservation order of conditions, I think, on some timing and stuff, but otherwise,
So we'll attach the amended order to this.
yeah.
Okay.
Just to refresh, what was the operating hours of the business?
They are 24/7,
It is 24/7.
and then half days usually on Saturday. So a skeleton crew comes in the middle of the night. Very small.
Okay, so half day, so Monday through Friday, 24/7, half day Saturday, and then
Saturday.
closed Sundays?
Correct.
So the last decision had it at 11 PM to 6 AM, they would be turned off,
The lights
the lights,
to emergency lighting only.
to emergency, yeah.
Right.
So you're okay with that again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of those people are operating inside the building.
Yes, it says shall not be permitted between 11 and 6 except if the building is being operated as indicated in section 20.
And then there was some things with water and sewer. I know Bernie sent an email earlier.
Yeah,
Or
he did, he just wanted to make sure there were gates on all the hydrants shown on the plan, as well as no 90-degree bends, and as of right now, we are still trying to determine if we're going to provide this loop through the site. It sounds like it's not going.
Right, we preserved an easement going through the cul-de-sac all the way down directly to the wastewater treatment, and that would allow us, there's a 12-inch pipe that's right on the other side of the wastewater treatment connect the park. So in return, we were looking for an offset on the exorbitant fees that we're paying to the water and sewer department in return, and we'll perform the construction of the pipe, and right now they've turned it down. So we have plenty of water and sewer capacity coming down to the building, so that's where we stand.
Just to reiterate, the conditions for the 80,000 square foot building, you're comfortable with all of those being applied to this?
Sure.
Any other questions or concerns? So, Any other issues, Tabitha?
No, none that I haven't brought up.
Are folks ready for a motion on this?
Yeah, I'd like to motion that we approve the site plan review modification, SP 455, with the condition that it includes the decision, which was also site plan 454A, which was approved in April of 2007. This is for Ryder Truck at 60 Commerce Way.
2017.
2017, right.
And
We all got younger.
just procedurally, I know they need a waiver for the 30-foot lights, but that's already been approved. So since we're just modifying this special permit, site plan,
Right.
I think all those approvals and waivers would stand, and we're just modifying, frankly, size of building from 80 to 20. So I don't think we have to revisit that unless folks want to. So there's been a motion to approve the minor modification of the special permit site plan review. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the...
I'll second the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought someone had.
Should we condition it on conservation approval as well, or is that kind of go without saying?
It certainly wouldn't hurt. Is that
That's fine.
amenable to the motioner and the second?
Yes.
That it be conditioned upon a ultimate approval of the Conservation Commission. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the modification, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll
We
be
don't wanna
busy
present
writing
this
up
one
your
again.
decision too.
You at the planning board, I mean, at the open house.
No more budget changes.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, so I think that brings us back to the beginning. And you were interrupted in the midst of your report, so
Yeah, no worries.
I'll let you pick up from where you left off.
Okay, where was I? We talked about Clapp Street, right? Yes.
Yes.
And then, okay, Mary Jo, we talked about that.
Well, we talked about, there was a piece of business that we had to approve the payment to the landscaper.
Right, so that's under bills.
Okay, so we'll wait till then.
Yeah. But the discussion was that they've done it. So, other planning news, just one more, well, another pitch, because I think I'm going to be working on this for a bit. Courtney Salvo has left to be the account clerk downstairs, so we are without a planning board assistant and ZBA secretary, because she mainly functioned as a ZBA secretary and staff at the ZBA. So there's a job description I attached to my little update, and share widely, please. I got quite a few applications so far, not a lot full applications. People don't really write cover letters anymore. I really would like a cover letter. So yeah. Town, what's that?
Said part-time.
Yes.
What's the
Sorry, I should probably
ballpark
say it off.
hours?
Part-time, up to 18 hours a week, and it's a range, I think it's 1683 being on the bottom end of the stepping range
Okay.
for rate of pay.
That's a union position?
It is a union position. It does not have benefits, but it's union. Town meeting actions have been sent to the Secretary of State for approval, so they'll be considered in effect once the AG approves them, and then it's retroactively to the date of town meeting. Fillable application forms, thanks to Kaylee Correa, our wonderful assistant and recording secretary. There's fillable application forms now on the planning board website, so for applicants who might be listening at home, go online and you can fill them out and email them to me. Amazing. Complete Streets, the
Have you gotten
schedule.
one yet?
What's that?
Have you gotten one yet?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Condyne. I tell them, go use those, and they do, which is great. Complete Streets schedule has been developed for the next step in planning for Complete Streets. So our next step is establishing the working group. I'm waiting on town manager approval on those appointees. There's been a couple of volunteers from the planning board, thank you. I think you might have to duke it out, so I'll let you know what happens there.
I'll yield.
You want to do everything though, Kevin. So the project notification form, I think Frank will be happy to hear this, for Worcester Street, West Main, has been submitted and accepted by MassDOT. So we're going to be having a little site visit and public meeting process on that.
Excites me too.
Well, I know it's been Frank's thing for a while, so I just,
Yeah.
but good, yeah, it excites everyone. It's a good thing.
Go through it twice a day.
Yeah, so this is first in like the step in the MassDOT process, so it's like PNF and then a PIF, which is project identification form, and then they talk about it some more, and then you put it on this list of maybe will be on the transportation improvement program, and then the transportation improvement program list comes out for the next like 6 years, so it probably would be constructed around 20.
What about when they have flying cars?
23.
Fly right through the intersection.
Don't get disappointed, though. That's not that long.
Moving forward.
Yeah, it's not that long in transportation land.
Step one.
All right, SNEPA, I went to SNEPA, the Southern New England APA Conference for Planners, and attended on some sessions for affordable housing and economic development. It was very interesting stuff, and if you're curious, I can pass that along to you. And there have been some internal discussions about updating some zoning bylaws for rooming houses, and the marijuana thing is still moving. So that's really all I had.
So what would, just to expand on that a little bit, with the internal discussions between which groups, or?
The department head, so public health, myself, the building inspector, police chief, fire chief, Mike Units. We've just been, there's a meeting set up for next week or the week after to talk about rooming houses and boarding houses. I think there's been some violations and we need to take a look at it. And the public health, the inspector, I guess you call it, Chris on, he's very concerned about it, which he has every right to be, so.
There's a lot of that in town?
The extended stay?
Huh?
The extended stay might be an area issue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I might have also put in there the Clap Street invoice, and then we could talk about that under bills. But minutes, I guess, would be next? So.
Where are we in the agenda? Yep. Approval of minutes for October 10th.
It's a long one.
It was long.
It did, just one item, I saw that it didn't list Kevin as the attendee
Thank you.
at the top.
That's happened twice to me.
Yeah. Even
Oh.
Yeah.
But my name is in the first
It
paragraph.
didn't say you weren't here, but, yeah, no, it didn't list Kevin up at the top, so.
Is that it? Thanks. Motion
You
approved.
nominated him and everything in that meeting.
Oh, yeah, I did do that, didn't I?
Yeah.
It
That's the last meeting.
was, a long time ago. Motion to approve the planning board meeting minutes for October 10th, 2017.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'll abstain. Okay. Bills, I'm sorry.
No, just bills.
Bills and warrants, let's deal with the Landmark. You have a bill for $19,482. We have a letter or an email from the Haydens saying they're satisfied, although I'm still a little confused about the 2 holes. They're willing to take 2 large blue
Yeah, I got back to him on that, and I said that it doesn't make sense to do anything for areas outside their property, and that's Maximum Solar's responsibility. There are some, I passed by it today, and looks like some dying trees again, and that's covered under their agreement, their warranty. So any swapping of trees out, I said, please don't do that.
Okay.
But the other
Hayden-
email was the one that they said
The
looked good.
Haydens are okay.
I thought we did an advance or a down payment on the landmark work. We gave them a partial.
You approved a partial, but we haven't met in the space of time that they've invoiced us for both, so they've finished it already. And, because I needed you to approve the bill, but we didn't meet the last time, so we just kicked that forward, and this is the whole total.
So nothing went out the door.
Nothing has gone out the door. They did invoice us initially for 7,000, and we haven't paid it yet, because then they finished, and then they invoiced us for the whole.
Although under this arrangement, there's nothing being held to ensure that the trees last.
That's the responsibility of Landmark as their contractor.
Right, but we don't have a relationship with Landmark. Again, that's
The
just a-
plantings are warranted for 90 days.
I'm sorry?
They're warranted for 90 days, it says in the invoice.
Yeah, their
Yeah.
invoice does say,
Which,
And I assume that
Given-
the Haydens will be very interested in maintaining those trees, so.
right, but unfortunately, given when they were planted, 90 days is, you know,
Yeah.
you won't be able to tell if they're doing well or they're frozen solid. But again, we have no other arrangements. I just asked the question just to put it out there.
I mean, in the letter of agreement that's guided us throughout this whole process, I don't believe it specified anything like that.
Okay.
Doesn't say anything in the contract.
Yeah. it's-
Yeah, it's just, it doesn't say anything in there.
Well, he has to be paid, so
Yeah.
is there a motion to approve payment of $19,482 to Landmark?
How much?
Will the-
$19,482.
So moved.
will the-
Second.
Will the 500 and change go back to Maximum Solar, Wheaton?
Right, that was a question I had, because there's still some money because of the interest, and I'm not a financial person.
As
But the
per contract,
treasurer
yeah.
will have to follow up on that clearing out of accounts. And actually, we have to reconcile a bunch of our accounts because a lot of them have these very low balances, and we have to remove that money. So I'll follow up with her about that.
Although I wouldn't be too much of a hurry to clean this up. I'd like to see us wait till the spring if there's a tree or two that has to be replaced. But nonetheless, we've got a motion and a second to approve payment of 19,482. So any other discussion on that? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. What did I do with the bills?
But they're under D.
They were under D. I pulled them out.
Use these if you'd like.
Yeah, thank you. We have, let's see, 1942 we just took care of. What are we asking for payment? What does our total come up to?
Well, salaries are
2,008.
2,806.
Okay.
07.
But we have
And then
the Bill
expenses,
Horsley,
8459.
right. We just approved the 19,482. There is a a bill for Horsley Witten peer review, $3,080, which is not part of our budget, but a review account. I assume the same for Serpide, $26.95.
Correct, that's for the EDA, the grant that we're submitting on behalf of Condyne for the Leonard Street project.
All right, and then there's $2,890.66, which does come out of the planning board budget per se. Including the $19,482, we're approving $25,257. No, $28,147. Okay.
It's a big number, but 19 of it we already approved.
We already
so.
did, so, $5,775 out of revolving accounts, and then $2,890.66 out of the planning board budget account. Are we kind of clear on that?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Can we have that stipulated in the minutes?
What's that?
You know, how it breaks down?
Sure.
Because I just like that.
We can just, actually, if we just have our budget total here and the revolving account separate, we can
Okay.
just move this formula
Up
to
there.
here, so that so the revolving accounts,
Okay, yeah,
I'm going to sign this.
yeah,
Thanks.
those are for you to sign.
I guess that's it for tonight, unless we want to sit and talk about other stuff, but,
Motion to adjourn?
Before just, what's on our next meeting agenda? Any topics?
Lopes Drive, the modification,
Okay. That's it so far?
that's it so far.
Okay. Second?
there's been a motion, a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Good night. See you in a couple of weeks.